What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Super Bowl LIX, Super Bowl 59, Super Bowl LIX is behind us. Kenny Pickett and the Philadelphia Eagles are champions of the 2024 season. We head into an offseason with many questions surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I won't lie to you, my friend, I am excited to get things rolling because from what I have heard, there are certain points throughout the offseason, and I'll explain it a little more in a little while, where you gather more information, more news is said, more people are in one space, and because of it, conversations are had, and obviously we hear about those conversations. The Super Bowl is one of them, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are expected to have a very interesting offseason that has already started down in New Orleans. Got to give a shout out to Kenny Pickett, LaRaven Clark, and good old Fred Johnson. Super Bowl 59 champions. How you feel, my friend? Go Birds. Sorry, had to say it. Go Birds. Was rooting for them all night long. Your thoughts on Super Bowl 59?
It certainly, I guess, was a football game, right? It was an absolute butt whooping. But, yeah, shout out Kenny Pickett. He's got a Super Bowl ring. But even in that, he's second best when it comes to former Steelers draft picks who are now backup quarterbacks.
Yeah,
Chris Aludicon still up one on Kenny Pickett. Has two to Pickett's one. So, you know what? Congratulations to them, though. That was, from pillar to post, an absolute butt whooping. And I'd say we've never seen Patrick Mahomes that rattled, but then again, we saw it in 2021 whenever he went up against the Bucs. So there's one way to beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and that is just to have four absolute studs rushing him every single down.
Yeah, I mean, you could talk to, I get Jalen Hurts played one hell of a game, and look at Kenny Pickett completes that pass. He's 1-1 in the Super Bowl. Just saying, 1-1 in the Super Bowl. More completions than Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Justin Fields currently. But that defense was the reason that the Eagles won the game last night, and it was the reason that it was so out of hand. And look, for anybody who's been watching long enough, you know who my draft pick was last season. You know who my guy was last season. There was one name out of Iowa that I said, man, whoever lands this guy, the Steelers need him. He's a stud. I loved him. I still think I a little bit love him. Cooper DeJean with the pick six. I lost my mind. Nobody at the party obviously watches this show. They know me. They don't want to hear my voice every day. They had no idea why I was losing my mind as much as I was when he came up with that interception. So much so that I think I pissed everybody rooting for the Chiefs off a little bit, but I didn't care. No regrets whatsoever. Shout out Cooper DeJean. Shout out the Philadelphia Eagles. I do want to play this clip, okay? This is the streets of Pitt. I'd say Pittsburgh, but the University of Pittsburgh last night after the Philadelphia Eagles win the Super Bowl.
This is the whole place will be.
This is full Kenny Pickett fandom and nothing else. That is thousands of people. I had live reports. We have people that write and work for us who go to Pitt still, and they were saying this is just growing all night long. Just a quick reaction on the streets of Pittsburgh joining the Super Bowl celebration. And, Kenny Pickett getting booed at a Pitt game earlier this season to going to streets getting crowded because the Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show you there are two separate fan bases that reside in the city of Pittsburgh. There are Pitt fans and there are Steelers fans. And sometimes those mix, but more often than not, those are kept separate. And it looked like the Pitt fans were having fun last night. I mean, good for him. Like I said, backup quarterback. He got in there, played a couple plays. I don't think he had any completions, but hey, he closed out a Super Bowl and he played in a Super Bowl, which is more than a lot of NFL quarterbacks get to say.
I 100% agree. He stepped foot, took the final kneel of a Super Bowl, and that was cool. The only other thing I want to talk about before we dive into new Steelers news, I got some updates on some very interesting stuff, to be honest with you. We will talk Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and new landing spots for them that have emerged over the weekend. But I have some insight on some news. I guess we could call it breaking news on the 49ers, where they're going with Deebo Samuel, and how the Pittsburgh Steelers are involved in all of this chaos. But first, did you hear Mike Tomlin get jabbed in the law commercial?
I mean, that was a local Pittsburgh commercial, and I was not
You weren't up here?
local in Pittsburgh. So I was down here in Virginia whenever we watched the game. So I didn't see it. I saw the story come up on the website and watched it. And yeah, that's certainly one way to use your airtime during the Super Bowl.
Wild. I don't think, and look, I think you're going to draw some fans. I think if you're paying millions of dollars for a Super Bowl ad, why we can't play it? I think we'd get taken down for copyright. But during the commercial, they say, quote, "Is there an area of law that focuses on firing underperforming football coaches?" And then they follow that up by using the words "the standard." I mean, I guess ballsy would be the word. I'm sure they got a lot of fans of it. I'm sure they got some laughs on it. I'm sure that they're just as pissed off as everybody else that the Steelers season ended the way that it did. I mean, you're not gonna ever sponsor the Pittsburgh Steelers. I could tell you that much. You are not going to end up working out a deal with Omar Khan, Art Rooney and company doing stuff like that. But I mean, to each his own. And I'm sure that they had some people that were behind them in that commercial. All right, let's talk what else we learned over the weekend. There are certain points throughout the offseason where you learn more than other times, that you are able to grasp more information, that more information becomes available to people like us because there are so many people, so many high up people in one area having conversations. Anybody who thinks that this is just like over the phone, "Hey, Omar, how's it going? I know that it's the beginning of March. We will begin to talk now." That doesn't happen. That's not how this thing works. There are 32 GMs, a bunch of owners, a bunch of coaches, a bunch of agents. Everybody's hanging out for a full week in New Orleans. They're obviously talking business, and a lot of it. And there are conversations that are had that draw plenty of interest. The Super Bowl is the first time that this happens. The Combine is the second time that this happens. The Senior Bowl draws a lot, but I think it's so early in the process that it's kind of tough to gauge some things. Like, there will be some reports that emerge, but by the Super Bowl, and especially right on the Super Bowl, you have some real information. Like the NFL offseason is actually starting to sculpt itself out. The Combine will be the next one. Free agency gets crazy, and then pro days, that kind of stuff is really the next time before the owners meeting, where, I mean, everything goes nuts at the owners meeting. That is the time to be alive. And I booked my ticket. Take a guess. I won't say where it is. Take a guess at how expensive. I did not book this room, by the way. I am in the normal Marriott's, miles away with all the rest of the normal non-work for the NFL people. Take a guess at how much a room is at the owners meetings.
Well, I know there's definitely a comma in there per night. So I'm going to say upwards of $1,000. I'm going to say maybe $1,500 a night to stay at that hotel when everything is literally happening for one of the biggest sports companies in the world.
Yeah, it is. I believe it starts at $1,500 for a 2-bedroom, like full, like you get 2 full beds or something. For a 1-bedroom, which for some reason is all, or for a 1 bed, which is always more expensive for some reason, I believe it's $1,800 a night. Yeah, I remember having a conversation. I won't say him by name, but I remember having a conversation last year at the owners meetings, and I said, "Hey, are the rooms just as nice as the rest of this hotel?" And the response to me was, "Oh, you're not staying here?" No, I'm at the courtyard down the street with the rest of the normal people. Thank you very much. Yeah, wild times, but we're all set. We're ready to go. I'm excited for it. As for the Super Bowl, there was some information that came out. We'll talk quarterbacks here in a minute. As for us in this show, what we received over the weekend had more to do with a trade from the 49ers in the form of a wide receiver. According to a source outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers from another NFL team, 49ers wide receiver Deebo Samuel, who was granted a trade from the 49ers at the end of the season and will begin searching for teams interested in his market, will quote unquote absolutely be calling the Pittsburgh Steelers to engage their interest in a trade for the 29-year-old. Now, Deebo is a conflicting character, I would say, to many who are looking for a wide receiver. He comes with, I think, massive upside because you get Deebo on a good year and Deebo's phenomenal. You get Deebo on the last couple years, he's about as average as it comes and doesn't really add much excitement to your offense or take away much attention from guys like George Pickens or Calvin Austin or whoever else that you have in the mix. At the same time, he would cost just $15 million. We don't know what a trade would cost for the Pittsburgh Steelers in terms of compensation, but you'd have to imagine that it'd be maybe a 4th-round pick for Deebo Samuel for a 29-year-old. I don't know if you're getting much higher than that. Maybe another team will be willing to pay higher than that. I don't think the Steelers would necessarily be looking at Deebo Samuel and say, we'll give up a 4th-round pick. At the same time, in the same conversation, the Steelers did ask about Deebo multiple times last year in the conversations with the 49ers about acquiring Brandon Ayuk, which means that they do have some level of interest. But the 49ers star will call the Steelers as these early conversations begin and definitely has interest in coming to Pittsburgh if that is how things shake out. I don't know if I'm a proponent of Deebo Samuel. I think you could do better than Deebo, and that's no disrespect to Deebo. I think he lands somewhere and continues to play a role and is a starting wide receiver in this league, or at worst, a number 2, like 3, I guess, if you have 3 starters at wide receiver. But I do think the Steelers could do better. I do think names like Cooper Kupp emerge much higher than Deebo Samuel. I think that if you are going to shoot for the stars, you could do much better than a trade package for a guy who's 29 years old, who's dealt with some injuries, who hasn't really had a blowout successful season in 2, maybe 3 years. And right now could be on the back half, is probably most certainly on the back half of his career where you're getting him. I don't know if that would be a move I'd make, but he is interested in Pittsburgh. I texted this to you yesterday, so I'm sure that there's some thoughts there. What are they?
Yeah, of course, a lot of people are going to look at this as the Steelers getting a cheaper price tag for a star wide receiver because they're going to look at the name Deebo Samuel and they're immediately going to kind of tie that to what Deebo was whenever San Francisco was making their Super Bowl run, specifically the one back in 2020. But the problem with that is Deebo Samuel isn't that type of player anymore. The way I look at this is you're slightly overpaying a declining asset in Deebo Samuel. He is a still 2 times, 3 times better version of Cordero Patterson, where you could use him as a number 3 running back if you want. I'd certainly rather have him in those situations than Patterson, but I do agree with you that he's down lower on the list. $15 million and a lower acquisition cost makes me a little bit interested. If he knows that he's a number 2, that also makes me a little bit more interested. But again, I'm not quite sure if he knows that yet. I'm not quite sure he doesn't look at himself and say, hey, I'm still Deebo Samuel that was looked at as one of the most electrifying players in the NFL. Because if he thinks that of himself, he's just going to get upset when he comes to Pittsburgh because he's not that guy anymore. And I don't think he's ever going to be that guy anymore. You mentioned that if you get him on a good year, then he's electrifying. He's great. I just don't know if he has that left in the tank. If you're looking at a number 2 wide receiver, if you want to overpay for a guy that is a true 2, I think Deebo Samuel should be among your top 5. But if you're looking to actually get a bona fide 1A, 1B to put next to George Pickens, especially with the future for Pickens being so uncertain at the moment, I think there are better options. We talked about T. Higgins. If you go and swing for the fences, he's obviously number 1, but some people aren't comfortable putting up 30+ million for a guy like T. Higgins. I think if you want to go number 2 for an aging veteran, I think Cooper Kupp leads the charge on that list. I think Deebo is a couple rungs down after that.
I 100% agree. Look, if you want to go add Deebo Samuel and say this is the beginning, he's a running back / wide receiver, we'll use him as a utility piece, but that's all he's going to be. He's going to replace Cordero Patterson and Van Jefferson and just be kind of utilized everywhere. There's an argument to be made. I'm not going to say I'm on board with it, but there's an argument to be made. But that comes with you still need another wide receiver. Chances are you still need 2. Like Deebo does not mean that you could go into the NFL draft somebody and say, that's our group is George Pickens, a rookie, and Deebo Samuel. the upside there is great. The downside is you are in a very bad spot midseason, and you learn that Deebo was not close to enough to make the difference between moving forward and staying where you are. And I get it. Deebo Samuel is way better than Van Jefferson. I'm not going to disagree with that one, but it still doesn't guarantee you that you're going to get the boost, the input, or the impact, any of that, than you would if you went a different direction. And that's my argument. I think that's just like you said, that's the biggest argument here. Cooper Kupp, if you could get him for remotely close to that $15 million mark, is probably going to cost you less in a trade and is going to have a bigger impact because Cooper Kupp's a better player. He still is. When he's healthy, he is a better option to have on the field than Deebo Samuel. And because of that, I don't know if Deebo is on my list. Like he probably is. I mean, everybody's on my list. Amari Cooper is on my list, but it doesn't mean that they're not low. It doesn't mean that I'm not saying draft early, maybe double dip in the draft early, go and get Cooper Kupp, go sign T. Higgins, go shoot for the stars with some younger names that might emerge. Go try to get Christian Kirk if that's the direction you're going to go in. I just think there are other options before I'm sitting here going, Deebo Samuel is the name I'm looking for and the name that could change things for the Steelers. I don't think that that's where that move takes them, and that's where it needs to. The Steelers can't make a deal or make an addition to their wide receiver room this offseason outside of the NFL draft and not have that addition be something where you're going, that's a step forward. It's a big one. It's a big step forward. I think Cooper Kupp is a decent step forward, and if he could stay healthy, is a big step forward. I don't know if Deebo falls in that same category to me. I think he might be a little bit lower.
Yeah, and I mean, just if you're going to compare those two as your options, look at what they are when they're at their best. Cooper Kupp is a guy that can be shifty and get open in the middle of the field because he's an elite route runner. If you can get that out of Cooper Kupp, then that is a dimension to this offense that hasn't been there for multiple years, not just this past year. Deebo Samuel is a guy who, at his best, was a get him the ball in space, and he's going to truck people because he's fast and he's physical, and not a lot of DBs can actually handle that. Well, the speed has gone away a little bit. The physicality takes a hit after you do that for so many years. I think you're going to take a bet on one of them to be able to get to their game more at the age of 29 or at the age of 30, or I believe Cooper Kupp's a little bit over the age of 30.
31.
I'm trusting Cooper Kupp more in that aspect, not to mention, I mean, how much does Arthur Smith put an emphasis on run blocking for wide receivers? That's why you look and you see, oh, okay, Van Jefferson was on the field a lot. Why? Because he can run block way better than Calvin Austin. If you get a guy like Cooper Kupp in, he can do both, and you don't have to have such specialized packages. I understand that it's probably not going to get fully taken away, but it's going to be utilized less, which goes to help the Steelers not be as predictable on offense.
Yeah, look at, I 100% agree. That's why they were going after Brandon Ayuk, because at the end of the day, he fit everything that they're looking for. I think Cooper Kupp, I don't know if you're putting Cooper Kupp on the field and saying, hey, dude, block for Najee Harris 20 times a game. I don't know if that's the move that I foresee coming, but I still think that you look at those options first. This fits the offense, and Cooper Kupp does fit the offense. Like, Deebo's a guy that he comes in here, he's a playmaker when healthy, if you get him at his best. But there are times where he's going to fade away, where defense can almost ignore him. You're not going to get that with Cooper. If Cooper's on the field, defenses have to pay attention to him. And to be honest with you, Cooper's going to come with 2 years left on his deal. Deebo comes with 1. Chances are, at 29 years old, he's not going to get traded and say, I'm coming to Pittsburgh for a 1-year deal, and then I'm going to hit the market. He's looking for an extension. And you're not going to sign Deebo Samuel to an extension. That's why he wants out of San Francisco. He doesn't want out of San Francisco because Brock Purdy stinks. No, the 49ers, when healthy, are a Super Bowl contending team. Deebo wants out because he wants money, and he understands this is probably his last significant deal in the NFL. The Steelers should not be willing to pay that. They should not. And I think it's too big of a risk. Deebo, in my eyes, I understand the interest from his side. I understand where things are going. I understand that Deebo, with George Pickens and Jaylen Warren, and if you got crazy with it, Ashton Genty and Justin Fields, could be one wild offense. It could also be a very bad offense. So I I don't think I'm on board with Deebo. I don't think many people are, but he does have interest in the Pittsburgh Steelers. He will, quote unquote, absolutely be calling him and his agent over the next, I would imagine, couple of days, and they'll engage and see where things go from there. On the quarterback side of everything that is happening, there were two reports, or I guess one report, one belief, prediction, we'll say, on the Steelers quarterback situations. We will start with Russell Wilson. We'll toss Justin Fields in afterwards. This is from Jeremy Fowler saying, quote, Wilson has also been connected to the Giants by a few people this week. He visited with the Giants last free agency, and New York is on his radar as a potential option in 2025. We'll go to the other one here, where the 33rd team's Tyler Brook predicts that the Baltimore Ravens could be a top landing spot for Justin Fields. Quote, while Fields would likely never see the field, which is a wild way to start this conversation, he'd have an opportunity to work side by side with arguably the best quarterback in the NFL right now, Lamar Jackson. The potential three-time MVP has found out how to develop as a lethal passer without sacrificing his mobility, which is something that Fields could benefit from. For the Ravens, there aren't many other suitable QB2 options that fit what they do. Journeyman veteran Josh Johnson was the backup this year, but the 38-year-old is unlikely to come back this offseason, with retirement more likely on the table. I think we could shut the Justin Fields one closer, or sooner, I would say. Two trains of thought. The first one, the Ravens would absolutely love Justin Fields. I think they would admire that pickup, that signing. It would fit perfectly. It would be exactly what they're looking for. My second one is Justin Fields wouldn't even pick up the phone. What are you negotiating? I'm 26 years old. Let me go learn from Lamar Jackson so that I could be a backup from Lamar, learn how to be a backup to Lamar and remain a backup to Lamar. No, your opportunity is right now. You're not going to go work behind Lamar Jackson for a year, do nothing, fade into the NFL, and then the league's going to be like, you know what? We need Justin Fields. Somebody's got to take a shot at Justin Fields. No, that doesn't work out. Look at Jameis Winston. Look at Mitch Trubisky. Chances are that that's just the beginning of the end of your starting career in the NFL, or at least your guaranteed starting career in the NFL. This is the best opportunity for Justin Fields to land a job this offseason and say, I am a starter. I get the full year to see if I am a starter or if I'm good enough to be a starter, and teams will give me that guarantee. The Pittsburgh Steelers will likely be one of them. He's not going to Baltimore. That will not happen. I mean, maybe in some wild scenario where Lamar trips on a branch or something and, breaks his toe and can't play for the first 15 weeks of the season, and the Ravens say, Justin, come try to win a Super Bowl with us. I mean, like that could change things. But I don't see it just happening where Justin Fields is the backup quarterback to Lamar Jackson. That one was absolutely wild to me. It's almost as if nobody was paying attention. I like Tyler Brook. I think he writes some good stuff. I like the 33rd team. I think they write great stuff. Wild prediction on the Baltimore Ravens being a landing spot for Justin Fields. I do have thoughts on Russ, but we'll close the door on Justin. What you got?
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing you just did. I'm sure Tyler Brook is good at his job, but that's just plain freaking disrespectful to Justin Fields. Like, by my count, there could be up to 9 teams looking for a starting quarterback, probably 8 because Minnesota's likely going to go with J.J. McCarthy when he's healthy. So 8 teams. You're telling me that Justin Fields isn't going to get a starting look on 8 teams? You're telling me there are 8 better quarterbacks in this year where there's only 2 in the NFL draft and there's very little in free agency, that there are 8 quarterbacks who teams are going to look at and say, yeah, I'd rather have them than take a shot on Justin Fields, especially considering the Pittsburgh Steelers have him in the building and have said nothing but glowing recommendations about Justin Fields. They've only been complimentary of what Justin is as a person and as a player, and they're excited about what his future is. If they're saying that, you're telling me other teams in the league, the other 7 that are looking for a quarterback, are going to be like, no, we ignored what he did in Pittsburgh. We ignored any potential he showed in Chicago. We just looked at his record in Chicago and we buried him like most people on the internet do. No. These are NFL franchises. It's Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders in the draft. Okay, that's 2. You're telling me that outside of Aaron Rodgers, who somebody might want to take a shot on over Justin, and Matt Stafford, who may or may not even be traded by the Los Angeles Rams, that they are that many better quarterback options than Justin Fields? No, it's plain disrespectful. And Justin would never sit there and say, yeah, let me go sit behind a future Hall of Fame, 2-time MVP, could have been 3-time MVP, and really just close the door on any chance that I have in this league. No, it's not going to happen.
It would never happen. I love all the backup stuff, the backup conversations with Justin Fields. It's almost as if nobody's paying attention to the fact that we, along with many others, have reported that the Pittsburgh Steelers want Justin Fields to be their starting quarterback in 2025. So I just think that the offer would have to be absolutely insane for him to say, I'm going to pass up that opportunity. I'm going to go to Baltimore and be a backup, or wherever and be a backup. Just would never happen. On the other side of this, when it comes to the Giants and Russell Wilson, who would be a landing spot for Justin Fields, probably before Russell Wilson in this instance. There are many trains of thought here when it comes to Fowler's report. The first one is the wording, okay? Because we've been on the what is being planted as seeds in this NFL free agency. Let me reread this for you. Quote, he visited with the Giants last free agency, and New York is on his radar as a potential option in 2025. I don't know where the New York Giants stand. I think they'd be a great fit for Russell Wilson, to be honest with you. I think that works out well. It gives you a veteran that you're not going to bench, that gives you a ceiling that's probably at least 6 or 7 wins, which is pretty good for the Giants. I don't think that they want to win a boatload of games, but they want to win enough to show that they could take steps forward. I think that he is a leader that they do not have, nor have had over the last couple of years, that they desperately need. I think he fits a lot of good things there. I don't know if the Giants are interested in Russ, and what I was told over the weekend was that Vegas probably isn't as strong of a landing spot for Russell Wilson as we currently believe it is. And we already know the Steelers side of things, and we could rehash it if everybody would like, but the Steelers right now are looking at Russ as not really an option for them in 2025. And the Raiders were expected to be the team for him. From what I've heard, have been told that might not be the case. The Giants make a lot of sense for Russell Wilson. I'd be okay with it. I think more and more of these teams are going to pop up as potential landing spots for Russell Wilson over the next coming weeks, because his time in Pittsburgh is likely done. And stuff like this, where conversations are, the Giants are a team that could watch out for Russell Wilson. They definitely could be. There will be probably 4 or 5 more of them that emerge over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think as teams kind of check in with certain quarterbacks and realize that, hey, maybe that's not the best option for us, Russ is going to be a lot of teams' fallback options. And again, I hate to say it like that because it sounds like a shot at Russ, but it's just true. You look at the quarterback market, there are 2 or 3 quarterbacks that people are going to call and going to check in on. I understand that people are down on Aaron Rodgers, but people are going to check in on Aaron Rodgers. I think personally that he's going to be the one that lands with the Las Vegas Raiders. But Matt Stafford's going to be another one that everybody is going to call and say, well, what do you want? Well, what's the deal? How much does he want to play? What's he looking for? What's his motivation? And I think that's going to be another one. And then I think a lot of teams are going to try to wait a little bit more towards that free agency period where they're going to say, all right, do we really think that getting Russell Wilson is better than trying to build off of what Sam Darnold was able to do in Minnesota? I think that a lot of these teams are going to have number 1 options, but their number 2 option is always going to be, well, Russ is there and he showed some potential. And I think that's going to be the case for a lot of teams. I mean, it's the case for Pittsburgh, right? We're thinking and we're of the mindset that they want to go Justin Fields first. But if the conversations go south on Justin, Russ is probably the number 2 option. Russ is probably the fallback. So it makes a lot of sense, especially for a Giants team that, like you mentioned, that was his first stop last year on his free agency tour. He went to New York before he came to Pittsburgh, and then he got to Pittsburgh and, well, he didn't leave Pittsburgh. Maybe he goes back to New York. It's a big entertainment city, so it fits him. It fits his family, and I think that it fits what he is right now and where that organization is right now, whereas they're not looking to compete for anything. They're looking for something to build from, and Russell Wilson right now is something to kind of put in the middle while they build everything else, and then they can address the quarterback at a later date.
I agree. I think Russ wants to compete for a Super Bowl, but I don't think he's going to have that opportunity. And because of it, he's just going to look, hey, where can I start? I don't want to be a backup. Where can I go and be a starter? The Giants make a lot of sense. Just like you said, there will be a lot of teams that look at him as a fallback option. Pittsburgh will be one of them. But it just kind of feels like the more and more things have gone on, the more I have heard, the more conversations that have been had. I mean, I had conversations over this. The Super Bowl is such an intel. Like, it is really the first stop of, like, we know so much more today than we did a week ago. And just from what I've been told, it's not super likely Russ is a candidate for the Steelers, even as a fallback option. Like, maybe if things go really south, but the Steelers expect names to emerge that might fit their bill. And as crazy as it sounds, they might consider names like Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson if that presented itself as, again, a fallback option. Their first option is still Justin Fields. But if things go south and they have to change course, they could look at other veterans before they look at Russell Wilson. Mason Rudolph is another name that not the greatest option.
No, I'm just saying that is a glaring indictment of Russell Wilson's chances in Pittsburgh if Mason Rudolph is in the same conversation.
But he is. Currently where we stand, I would believe that he is. I'm not saying I know that as a definite. I'm just saying I would believe that he is. So we'll see what happens. Two things I do know. Justin's not going to Baltimore unless everything changes and I am just totally, everybody's wrong. I'm not talking me. I'm talking everybody in the world is wrong. That's when Justin goes to Baltimore. The Giants make a lot of sense for us. The Steelers, I think, are moving on, and we'll address that a little bit more here in the comments. And Deebo Samuel. Pittsburgh's about to get a phone call, maybe a couple of them. Hey, how's it going? You have any interest in Deebo? I'm sure the answer is, yeah, let's talk. I'm sure probably won't get much further than that. Although Mike Tomlin makes decisions, man. He loves his guys when they're old and cheap. Deebo's right on the verge of that situation there. All right. We're going to finish off the show. That's everything on our agenda. We're going to start diving into all your questions, so make sure you toss them in the chat. We'll get to them before we head out. Before we start them, I just want to make the membership announcement one more time. If you guys didn't hear last week, we have launched memberships on our YouTube channel. What that will do, what that comes with, first off, thank you all of our new members. It was awesome to get like a little rush over the weekend. That was super cool. I expected no members ever, so the fact that this is happening, I think I keep telling my wife every 10 minutes, I'm like, dude, we got new members. This is awesome. So thank you guys. Very appreciative. I will begin those phone calls today. So two things come with the memberships. The first one is the ability to leave messages for our call-in show. So the way you will go about this on the members-only community page on our YouTube channel, you will be able to see a phone number that says, hey, call this number, leave your voicemail in the form of a question, or, you know, if you have a statement, leave a statement, but just make sure I can respond to it, and try not to like curse me out or anybody else. That would be very appreciated. And in that, I will respond to them not live in a show on Wednesday mornings. We'll air that show probably about noon every Wednesday. So make sure that you are doing that. And secondly, if you email us, which you will get an email on the members channel as well, a question and your phone number, I will call one person every single day to just answer your question, hopefully give you a little bit more insight, talk for a couple of minutes, and hopefully give you guys a little bit more than what I could give you on the show. So we appreciate everybody who is doing that, who has done that, and we will continue to put that one out. I don't think we have any messages for Wednesday's show where we currently stand. So we're diving into it. Got a bunch of emails. Didn't get any questions. So make sure that you're calling, leaving the voicemail. We will knock that out and put it out Wednesday. And I'm excited to hear from you guys. All right. With that said, we're going to finish off the show. We're going to dive into your questions. Toss them in the chat. We'll get to all of them before we head out of here. Nick, what do we got?
Yeah, let's kick things off with Madeline, who says, when do you think we sign our quarterback? There has been a lot of rumors that the market is only growing. When should we see a deal get done? Does it push them to get it done sooner rather than later, considering the market's heating up?
Yeah, I do think the Steelers would like to get a deal done sooner rather than later. So the Steelers have begun phase one. I roasted the Steelers last week. I don't regret any of it, saying the Pittsburgh Steelers haven't made any changes. What are we doing? Phase one was the coaches. How are you still not doing this? How are you still not making the changes? Well, they hired Gerald Alexander, which I thought was a phenomenal move. I think he's an absolute stud. And I have been told that today they will begin interviews for their linebackers coach, starting with, and this is breaking news, I guess, on the show here, starting with Dallas Cowboys linebackers coach Scott McCurley, I believe his last name is. Not super into the position coaching names, but Scott McCurley, I believe, is their first interview with the Dallas Cowboys, and they'll move from there. From there, phase two will begin. They will start to negotiate with Justin Fields. I'm sure conversations have already started, but I don't think they've gotten too deep. They will try to get that done and him locked in well before free agency. We'll see if it happens. I'm sure we'll get plenty of noise and news at the NFL Combine. And then from there, expect the deal to happen if they are going to get one done before March 10th, I believe, is when you could start negotiating with free agents.
All right, let's jump over to Cody Silva, who says, how can we upgrade our running game and our run defense, and how far away are we from fixing both of those areas?
I would say they're kind of far away from fixing those areas, just because they need a couple of pieces. You certainly need at least one defensive lineman. I would say probably two or three. Two of them would be depth pieces, and one of them would be a new starter. I think Larry Ogunjobi is a good player, but I do think it's time to move on from Larry O. He doesn't provide enough in either side of the game to really give you that edge or that advantage. The Steelers need to upgrade there, and you got to figure out your linebackers. Like Patrick Queen has to turn into a run stuffing linebacker. You got to bring a Landon Roberts back and utilize him correctly. Peyton Wilson's got to take a step forward, which he's a rookie, and I do expect him to take a step forward, but that's got to happen. But to start it off, you got to fix your defensive front. I mean, we watched the Eagles last night. I know there's another question in here that we'll get to in a little bit about that, and it just showed that you have a dominant defensive front. You could beat the Kansas City Chiefs. You could beat these Super Bowl contenders. The Steelers have to start doing that kind of stuff. They need to go get these star defensive linemen, because that's how they play this game, and they just don't have those names right now.
Yeah, let's actually skip down to that one just to keep it on trend here. Logan says, why did the Eagles 4-man rush with limited blitzes generate so much more pressure than the Steelers 4-man rush kid?
Jalen Carter, who was the other dude? 93 was absolutely killing it last night. I don't even know his name. Nolan Smith. I mean, you got Brandon Graham. That's what it is. They have stars across Jordan Davis. They have stars across the board in Philadelphia. And that's what the Steelers don't have. Like, they have Cam Hayward. They have TJ Watt. I think Alex Highsmith's phenomenal. They need two more of them. I'm not going to put Keanu Benton in that role yet, or on that list yet, because he's got to become that superstar. I think you could form him into a superstar and get somebody else. But that's what the difference is the Steelers guys just don't get home. They don't have the pressure. They don't have the ability to do that. And I think replacing Larry O helps that, but you can't just replace Larry O with Dean Lowry or another Larry O. Like, it's got to be a significant step forward. Another part of that is the fact that the Eagles find themselves picking in the top 10 quite a bit, because they make moves and they do these things, and the Steelers don't do that. So you don't get chances at Jalen Carter's or Nolan Smith's. They will need to find ways to do that and to figure that out. But that's the difference, is the Eagles are loaded with stardom and the Steelers are not up front. You're muted.
I'm not.
Now
can you hear me?
I can now.
I was about to say, I wasn't muted that entire time.
Oh, he froze. As he freezes, I will read the question here. Pittsburgh Hornets, hey, we just saw a Sooners quarterback win a Super Bowl. What about getting another Kyler Murray? Though would prefer Baker Mayfield. Obviously would prefer Baker Mayfield. He's not going to be on the market. Kyler Murray, the Steelers have had interest in Kyler Murray. They have thought about the idea of Kyler Murray in the past. I don't know where they currently stand. I also think that the Cardinals are riding it out with Kyler Murray because they don't have a better option where we currently stand. You're not going to go replace Kyler Murray with a different Kyler Murray or anybody in the same category. So I don't know if that's a real possibility, simply because I don't know if the Cardinals have any interest in moving on. Nick is back, it assumes, or it appears.
Yeah, if you can hear me, let's go to Bobby Mahalka, who says, not going to be able to submit my question later, so want to know now, have you guys been able to confirm the reports that Steelers have said Russell Wilson will not be returning to the Pittsburgh Steelers indefinitely?
They are not that strong. The quote, or what I've been told, what sources have told me, is it's not that strong. They do not want Russ to be their starting quarterback in 2025, but they're not ruling out any options where they currently stand. They want Justin to be the guy. They have other options that they believe could be the guy if Justin's not the guy. They're not nearly as high on those options as they are Justin Fields, but that is, that's to come if the Justin negotiations go south. What I have been told, they want a reasonable deal for Justin Fields. If they can't get that, they will move on. Names like Aaron Rodgers, names like Mason Rudolph, all on the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Russell Wilson still on the table for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he is not anywhere near the top of that list right now, simply because there are two conflicting sides. I also, have heard things like the Russ side of things has leaked certain information in a light that makes the Steelers or the Steelers coaching staff look worse than it is. And because of that, the team is obviously not super happy about the situation. So I do think there's a little bit of a conflict right now. I don't know if I'd use the word indefinitely, but I can confirm that right now the Steelers do not see Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback or their backup in 2025.
All right, let's go to Taylor, who says, with Andy Weidel whispering in Omar's ear and Philly continuing to show that they do what we want to do, but infinitely better, what realistic moves do you think we can make to get closer?
You have to go get a defensive end and replace Larry Ogunjobi. You probably have to go get a nose tackle, unless you want to keep Keanu Benton there. I don't know how to work that situation out, because Keanu Benton is great, and I think he's got a lot of upside. And if you want to go get a nose tackle, it's easier than going to make a splash trade for Trey Hendrickson. But I think the splash trade for Trey Hendrickson makes your upside way higher than just moving Keanu Benton over. So I don't know how I feel about that one. You have to figure out your corner position. And by that, I mean, you have to have somebody in there that can compete with Corey Trice that isn't James Pierre, that is starter worthy at some point. Like, Corey Trice is a guy that they hope develops into that quality of player, but Corey Trice can't stay healthy. And because of that, you have to have another name. Like, you can't have a James Pierre. You have to have a rookie. You have to have somebody in there that you feel could really develop into something bigger. That's definitely a part of this. You have to move TJ around. That's another huge part of this. And to be very honest, your third safety has to be able to eventually, if he's that good, replace Minkah Fitzpatrick. I know that's crazy that's crazy to say, but if 3/4 of the season go by and Minkah is struggling once again, you have to have a guy that can play more than Minkah. Doesn't mean Minka's not your starter. It just means that you have a guy that you could. DeMonte KZ wasn't that guy. You could go find another one of those guys and make it work. On the offensive side of the ball, trade for Cooper Kupp and then draft somebody. I think both of those are very realistic. Re-sign Jaylen Warren, potentially Najee Harris, I guess, because from what I've heard, that actually is a realistic possibility. And I still think you draft somebody and move on from Cordero Patterson. And then you just kind of hope for the best. The Steelers are in a hope for the best situation. It's not great, but even teams like Philly had to go through the hope for the best situation before they got to where they are right now. And the Steelers are kind of in that boat where they're trying to figure it out. They have a lot of the pieces, but they don't have all the pieces, and they need some pieces to just step up. And that just takes time sometimes. And I think that's where they are.
All right, let's go to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, which AFC North team loses the most players in the offseason?
The Cleveland Browns would be my guess. They would be my guess. I think Cincinnati's going to there's a growing belief the Cincinnati Bengals pull off T. Higgins, which is wild to me. Absolutely wild. There's also a growing belief they pull off Trey Hendrickson, which I think is even more wild, to be very honest, because he's 30 years old, and I would imagine you could get a second-round pick for Trey Hendrickson if you traded him, and that's nuts. They'll lose a couple of guys, but nobody massive. The Cleveland Browns, I think, are going to lose Myles Garrett. I think they're going to lose Denzel Ward. I think they're going to lose Joel Bonito. They'll probably have a couple other people. Nick Chubb, I would imagine, does not come back to the Cleveland Browns. They're going to lose quite a bit of people. That would be my guess. It does not. Cleveland does not seem in high spirits where they stand right now. There was a lot of talk down in New Orleans, and everything I heard was not good about Cleveland.
All right, let's go down to Potato Salad, who says best defensive line targets through free agency, trade, and the draft for the Steelers this offseason.
Let me pull up the list of free agents. Trey Hendrickson is my... Sorry, I'm pulling it up here. Trey Hendrickson is my go-to trade. I think if you could put him inside, he's a game changer. He is a superstar. I do think he'd work as a defensive end instead of an edge rusher in Pittsburgh. That would be my first. I'd give up a second-round pick for Trey Hendrickson. I would. Like, I know that sounds crazy. I know it adds to a massive defense that already spends a boatload of money on like 4 guys. I don't care. Like, I don't care. You want to win a Super Bowl? You want to compete for a Super Bowl? Go get Trey Hendrickson. I think that he fits so well, to be honest with you. Besides that, Javon Hargraves would definitely be a name. There aren't really a bunch of, and I mean, you could look at guys like Josh Sweat, great, but he's an edge rusher. You're not going to go get him. You maybe be able to pull off a guy like Marcus Davenport, but again, like, he's more of an outside guy. How many outside guys can you have? There aren't really a ton of available free agents that you look at and go, you're going to fit what the Steelers are looking for, unless you're going to spend money on an old guy. DeMarcus Lawrence would be great, but he's 32 years old. Chances are you're going to pay him $10 million a year plus. Javon Hargrave would be awesome. I think that makes a lot of sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, even later in his career. You could take chances on guys like BJ Hill or DJ Jones that should have a little bit of upside, but I don't know where they currently stand. And then in the draft, I mean, you could go, what is it? Kenneth Nolan. You could go out of Ole Miss. You can go, who's the other Michigan dude? There's another Michigan guy that's fantastic that I think could sit there at the end of the first round. He's another option. I have a mock draft coming out tomorrow. Later in the draft, I have them taking Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, who I think is just ton of upside. He's like 6'7", which is crazy. There are a couple of names. Those would be my best ones. Trey Hendrickson tops that list. I think once you hit free agency, your options are significantly less exciting than anywhere else. At that point, you're trying to fill nose tackle, move Keanu Benton over.
All right, let's jump to Red Hot Chili Peppers fan who says, Steelers Super Bowl, do you think Mike Tomlin watched the defense and how it plays a huge role to be great?
Can I be honest with you? What do you think the chances are Mike Tomlin watched the Super Bowl last night is?
I think he probably would have watched it. I don't think that he's a football guy. I don't think he would have missed the Super Bowl.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I think there's a chance, pretty good chance. I wouldn't be surprised if Mike Tomlin turned it off at halftime and said, all right, I'm going to bed. That was enough for me. Like,
well, maybe.
Cares?
I think a lot of people over
probably
did the same thing.
Probably, but I just don't. I don't think Mike Tomlin's like as into it as everybody else, and he does study it, but I feel like studying's different. And Mike Tomlin is a football guy. You're right there, but I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me. I'll say that. I do think that he watched it. I do think he stared at the defense. I do think if anybody took anything away from last night, it is that, man, you want to beat the Chiefs, don't go get Josh Allen. Go get Jalen Carter. go get Nolan Smith. Go get Josh Sweat. Go get those guys who make that defensive front unbelievable. Go get the Cooper DeJeans. Go get the Quinion Mitchells. I get that he gave up a touchdown, but go get the Quinion Mitchells. Go get all those guys that make your defense unbelievable. The Zach Bonds. Go get a Zach Bond, who is an available free agent. those are who I think the Steelers took away from, and I hope Mike Tomlin took away from, and I think everybody else did too. Is you want to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, it doesn't matter who your I mean, you need a good quarterback, but you need a defense, and if you got a good enough one, you're going to beat them.
With that in mind, let's go to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, do you expect us to go defensive line in the draft for the first round after seeing what the Eagles did last night?
I think that it's definitely a possibility. I believe that their chances grew pretty significantly. I will say I have a mock draft coming out tomorrow, my second one of the offseason. They still go Mecca Ibuka. I just think his talent is going to be too high for that position. I am curious to see what they do in free agency and in the offseason before the NFL draft, before I'm going to say that they draft a defensive lineman. But it would not surprise me at all if the Steelers went defensive line or offensive line in the first round of the NFL. It really wouldn't. That's where you win in the NFL, and it would not surprise me if that happened.
Let's go to Marlon Lewis. Appreciate you always. Marlon says, what's a reasonable deal for Justin Fields?
I think 2 years, $40 million. I actually just put a story out this morning, dropped about an hour ago, on the Steelers offseason bold predictions, and in there it predicts Justin Fields 2 years, $40 million. First year is like $17 million. Second year is like 23. It's a prove it for Justin and a security without spending a boatload of money for both sides. I think that works out well. I would say 2 years, $40 million for Justin Fields.
All right, let's go to Eddie the First, who says, with the Steelers dragging their feet, do you believe this messes with Fields' mind as far as sign on how bad the Steelers want him?
No, I think the Steelers have been in contact with Justin Fields and his representatives, just letting them know the process and everything that's going on. They are very transparent. Omar Khan knows how to do these things. You know, if this was Mike T negotiating, I could see like a little bit of worry, but this isn't. This is Omar Khan. He knows how to handle this stuff. He knows how to build a team. He knows how to work with free agents and guys like that. I do believe that they have been in contact with Justin, even if it's just like a baseline, like, hey, you know, this is where we stand. I want you to start thinking about it. We're not going to toss money out yet, but we'll get there after we fill our coaching staff. And I think that those conversations have been had, definitely. So I don't think it messes with Fields' mind. I think he's very much so in the loop. He is not hearing all this through everybody else. He's probably hearing a lot of it and going, yeah, that's nonsense, just like a lot of us are. But yeah, if I had to guess, they've been in contact a couple of times.
And to be fair, if you look around the league, nobody else is signing contracts right now either. So
no, it's just Aaron Rodgers and the Jets saying we're done.
Yeah, it's more people leaving than it is anything else. So maybe quiet on the news front is better than the alternative for the way the last week and a half has been going.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Let's go to Taylor, who says, with time to build more confidence in Arthur's system and assuming we make the moves to add playmakers, do you think Justin has the upside to become a Jalen Hurts type talent?
I do. I definitely do. I think Justin's got upside to be very good in this league. Very good. He's got the upside. Doesn't mean he's going to get there. That's a totally different. What he could be and what he's going to be are two totally different things. But he's got the upside to be very good in the NFL. Very good. I mean, he was drafted 11th overall 4 years ago. He has had four offensive coordinators in 4 years. He's learned 4 playbooks in 4 years. The first 2 years of his NFL career, his top pass catching options were Darnell Mooney and then Chase Claypool. From there, he got DJ Moore for like a year and a half, and yeah, great, but like not really the number one. Like it wasn't as good as everybody thought it could have been. He's had one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. I mean, go look at Caleb Williams and tell me that offensive line wasn't garbage. It was awful. Justin had all those guys minus some, which means it's worse. He's had 3 head coaches. The head coach that he finished Chicago with lasted half a season after he was gone. So it shows how good that guy was. He's had everything go against him his entire NFL career. He's never had a real shot. I look at him as like a Baker, a Sam Darnold, just put in these bad situations. He's got a very good opportunity to right that ship, but now it's on him and if he can actually do it.
All right, let's go to James, who says, how do you feel about Chris Godwin or maybe Keenan Allen for wide receiver if we can't get T. Higgins? They're both vets and could be reliable target alongside George Pickens.
Keenan Allen makes me nervous because he dealt with a lot of injuries this year, so I don't know if he's on the decline or what's going to happen there. Chris Godwin, I'd be all about. I mean, even with he suffered an ACL tear this year, I'm pretty sure, right? Something with his knee. Yeah, and even with that, I think Chris Godwin's upside is massive. He's phenomenal. I would go Chris Godwin. I would be very comfortable with adding Chris Godwin to the Steelers roster. Keenan Allen, I'd be skeptical about, a little nervous. I don't think he'd be the best move, but I do think he fits like above an Amari Cooper. I don't think he's better than a Cooper Kupp edition or a Christian Kirk edition, but I do think that he is on the list. You know, he is definitely on the list. Would you go Keenan Allen or Deebo Samuel?
I'd probably favor Deebo Samuel. I'm not sure. They have the same injury concerns. Keenan Allen struggles to stay on the field. And while I do like Keenan Allen, I loved watching him play when he was younger. I think that of the two of them, Deebo probably has a little bit more left in the tank. But again, as we talked about, you're getting a couple layers down before you're looking at Deebo.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's go to J Chaps Snacks review, who wants you to review last night's Super Bowl commercial. Says, what was your favorite Super Bowl commercial from yesterday?
Yeah, that's a tough, and it stinks. Like I was at a Super Bowl party and everybody was talking during all of the like I didn't hear anything Tom Brady said the whole game. I barely got to watch any or hear any actual Super Bowl commercials. The Shane Gillis Post Malone commercial that's been out for a week was a phenomenal commercial. Loved that commercial. That was hilarious. I'm always a sucker. This is my thing with commercials. Okay. And the Doritos commercial was hilarious. That was a good one too. With the aliens. That was good. I'll get a better answer. I love going through the Super Bowl commercials, but I got to actually listen to them. I will say this. This is my takeaway from last night. We need to go back as a Super Bowl society to 95% hilarious commercials, 5% sad, inspiring commercials. Because right now we're 80% sad, inspiring commercials and 20% funny. And it was way better when you were laughing and laughing and laughing. And then the Budweiser horse came up and you were just like, all right, man, don't cry. Do not cry. That's when the days were good. You know, now the Budweiser horse comes up and it's like after like 4 commercials of like, you could be the greatest person ever. And I'm like, I don't care, man. Give me the E-Trade babies. Give me the Doritos commercials for days. Cause they're always hilarious. Even like a classic like Coors Light with the Rocky Mountains or whatever, those were good back in the day. I think that's my takeaway. Make it funny again. Make Super Bowl commercials funny again.
Shout out to the new kid on the block, Uber Eats. The Matthew McConaughey commercials. They're going down a path here with the football's trying to sell you food. I think they hit it out of the park with that McConaughey one yesterday.
I definitely agree with that one. That was a good one too. That one definitely that might be the one, to be honest.
Let's go down to Eddie the First, who says, saw on the NFL channel at least 4 mock drafts having the Steelers taking Golden from Texas in round 1. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like Matthew Golden. I don't know. I don't think Matthew Golden is a Mecca Ibuka, and I don't think that he's worth taking a shot like you could at defensive line or offensive line. I think running back, obviously, but maybe a corner that's there. I don't know. Matthew Golden to me is an AD Mitchell, and I was a big fan of AD Mitchell, but I wasn't drafting AD Mitchell in the first round. I just didn't think that was worth it. And that's how I look at Matthew Golden. It's good upside. I think you're kind of settling if that's the route that you take.
All right, let's go to Marlon, who says, I'm coming to training camp this year. Should I bring a chair or an ice chest?
I don't think you need either, to be honest with you. Should be good to go. It does get warm at training camp, but it's a good time, and they're bleachers. Should be all right. And unless you're looking to sit on the side, you got to get there early to get a bleacher seat. St. Mary's or St. Vincent College, excuse me, is, they don't anticipate that many fans at their football games, so it's not the biggest bleachers in the world, but they're there. But yeah, make sure you give a shout out if you see me. I'll be chilling on the sideline.
All right, let's go to Grayson, who says, "Hey, Nick and Noah, I'm really hungover and want to know if you guys know any athlete secrets to not feeling hungover. By the way, do you guys think Pickett is happier now, even if he's a backup?"
I think Kenny Pickett's having a great day, to be honest with you. I think he is enjoying life today. As in the athlete secrets, to be honest with you, not many athletes that I've been around have been drunk. So I don't know if I have those secrets for you. I'm sure a lot of Eagles are feeling it this morning. Who knows about that one? It's Monday after the Super Bowl, man. You get some sleep, eat all the crappy leftover food. You try not to smell buffalo chicken dip because it probably hurts a little bit today. Probably doesn't hit you the same as yesterday. Yeah. And you'll be all right tomorrow. Liquid IVs for days.
Yeah, I can't help you now. It's a little too late after the fact for my tip, but what I usually do if I know that I need to be productive and I know that if I don't do anything, I'm going to have a hangover, 1 bottle of water, a piece of bread, and a Tylenol. That'll help. Not going to be everything, but that'll help.
In the morning?
No, before you go to bed.
Wow, dude, I could only I'd eat the whole loaf of bread before bed.
No, that's too much. Just 1 piece to help soak up some of the alcohol in there.
Yeah. Go eat some bacon. Go eat lots of bacon.
Greasy food helps all the time. Let's go to Marlon, who says, "Would you bring in Aaron Jones on a cheap deal?"
I don't know. Maybe. I like Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones is good. If we're talking Aaron Jones over Najee and Jaylen Warren, I still think there's a conversation to be had, but I do think overall Jaylen Warren, a rookie, and even if it's Jalen, Najee, and a rookie, like I think that's a better trio than most other paths you could take. But I would go Jalen, a rookie, and then I'd try to go find some other veteran who's younger, who's got some upside to be that number 3. Rico Dowdle was a name I tossed out last week. I think I'd stick with that one for right now. I think that's the way to go. Excuse me. I just think that gives you the best right now and later. Aaron Jones is good, but it's time to stop band-aiding things and start actually fixing stuff.
All right. That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Make sure if you are a member of the channel to call that number on our YouTube page and leave your message for Wednesday's call-in show that will go live just about noon Eastern time. With that said, it's a beautiful one in the Berg. If you were storming the streets last night chanting Kenny Pickett, I hope you're getting some sleep today. Enjoy it. We'll be back tomorrow. Peace.